I started thinking when it all began. The conference hall pulsed with artificial light and curated applause. On stage, Henry Stanford stood with his signature smug confidence, waving to the crowd like a prophet who'd just come down from the mountain. Behind him, the screen flared to life with the words, "Quantum Link OS, the future of cloud control." Beneath it, a looping promo video began to play. My voice echoed through the room. It was from an old interview I did 2 years ago, explaining the architecture of the fault-tolerant load balancer I built from scratch. They'd pitched my voice through a filter, stitched the video with stock footage, removed any frame where my face appeared. But it was unmistakably me, and I wasn't on the guest list. I sat in the last row, anonymous in a borrowed suit and a badge that read, Alex Green, Independent Consultant. The irony of that label burned hotter than the stage lights. I didn't clap, I didn't blink. I just watched as Henry recited my lines, word for word, like he'd been the one sweating over the whiteboard at 2 a.m., chasing bugs that didn't make sense until you saw them sideways. "Wasn't that your voice?" the guy next to me whispered, leaning in. I didn't answer. He pushed again. "Weren't you part of the original team?" I kept staring forward. The applause had stopped. Henry was walking off stage, high-fiving a developer I didn't recognize, someone young, fresh, clean. Not someone who'd slept under his desk for 6 months, debugging a memory leak that could have killed the whole platform. The after-party bled into the lobby. I slipped past it, out into the rain, where the city smelled like metal and tired ambition. I didn't open my umbrella. I wanted the water. I wanted to feel something soak through. That's when Sarah found me. "Alex?" she said, as if surprised I still existed. "What are you doing here?" I turned. Her hair was dry, her shoes expensive now. "Watching history," I said, being erased from it. She winced. "I didn't know they were gonna—" "You knew," I cut in. "You always knew." She didn't deny it. "Why didn't you fight it?" she asked softly. I looked past her at the city, neon, concrete, and lies. "Because I already knew how this ends," I said. "Without me, it all burns." And as I walked away, her silence followed me like a ghost. I had spent 5 years building that system, from a dusty shared office to a platform running mission-critical systems in half the Fortune 500. They tried to erase me with a signature and a polite email. But they forgot the one thing they couldn't fake. The system only worked because I made it work. And now it was only a matter of time. ChatGPT Skazal, I watched them from a distance, and they had no idea. 2 weeks after the launch event, I set up a quiet alert system, just a few lines of code wired into the public-facing API endpoints. Nothing invasive, nothing illegal. Just enough to hear the system groan when it was being used wrong, and it was groaning constantly. Bad request rates were climbing, latency spikes in regions that should have been smooth, failovers triggering randomly. The logs, the ones I had designed to speak like a language, now read like cries for help in a tongue no one understood. They were breaking it, slowly, elegantly, stupidly. Henry still posted his morning affirmations on LinkedIn. "Leadership is about vision, not code." Sure, Henry, I started collecting screenshots. At first, I told myself it was for amusement, a private gallery of chaos. But that wasn't true. Part of me was already preparing for the next move. I just didn't want to admit I hadn't let go. I found their bug tracker through a friend who still had access. The issues were piling up, vague, panicked, half-written. System crashing under load, need escalation. User data intermittently missing from fetch calls. Why does the failover override our DNS routing? I knew why. Every failure had a name. Mine. The new lead engineer, Kevin, had emailed me once. Just one line. "Hey Alex, would you be open to a short consult? Just to walk us through some parts of your schema?" I didn't answer, not yet. Instead, I reread the contract I signed when they pushed me out. There was no non-compete, no gag order, just a vague "thank you for your contributions" and a payout that wouldn't even cover my last month's rent. They thought I'd vanish. But I hadn't. I remembered the moment it started to unravel. A year before they fired me, I presented an idea at our internal summit. A modular scaling engine that could self-correct under stress. Henry smiled, nodded, then shelved it. said it was too ambitious for this phase. 2 months later, the pitch showed up in his investor deck, with his name under technical vision. That was the first time I stopped speaking in meetings, not out of defeat. Out of calculation, I began saving everything: notebooks, versions of the code, email threads, my commits with timestamps, drafts, even sketches from napkins scanned into PDFs. It wasn't just documentation, it was a weapon. And now the weapon sat waiting. I still hadn't told anyone, not even Jordan, my only real friend from the old team who now worked freelance in Seattle. We talked occasionally about anything but the company, until one night late he messaged, "Jordan, you seen what's happening to Q-Link's uptime? They're tanking." Me, "Just bad leadership, I guess." Jordan, "It's like they're trying to steer a ship without knowing what half the buttons do." Me, "Maybe someone moved the labels." Jordan, "You did this?" Me, "I didn't do anything. I just stopped holding it together." He didn't reply for a long time. Then finally, Jordan, "They're gonna come crawling." I stared at those words. Maybe they would. But this wasn't about revenge, not yet. I wasn't ready to become that person, the one who strikes back. I was still watching, still calculating, still unsure what justice even looked like for someone like me. But something had shifted. I no longer hoped they'd fix it. I wanted them to keep failing. Not because I hated them, but because the truth only emerges when the surface cracks. I was waiting for the fracture line to reach the core, and then I'd move. 3 days. That's how long it took before the first real crack went public. A post on a developer forum buried among weekend threads. Anyone else having issues with Quantum Link's new auto-scaling? Memory leaks, restart loops? Can't keep my clusters stable. It wasn't just noise anymore, it was a signal. And I followed it. I created a burner email and messaged the poster. Asked for logs politely. They sent them without hesitation, desperate. I scrolled through the stack traces and there it was. Line 442 in the autoscaler module. A line I never wrote. A line that shouldn't exist. They'd rewritten part of my scaling algorithm, the one I'd built over a year of trial, failure, and testing, and replaced a recursive cap check with a simple overflow trigger. It was like putting duct tape on a microchip. Lazy, dangerous, predictable. I poured a glass of water and stared at my wall of printouts. A mosaic of code, diagrams, and emails. I hadn't realized how close I was to this forensics obsession, but now I was ready for the first move, a micro-revenge. I uploaded a technical blog post under an alias, just code, no names, no accusations. Titled, "The Cost of Ignoring System Design Principles in Cloud Architecture." It dissected, line by line, the failure in the autoscaler logic. Anyone in the know would recognize the architecture, and someone in the know did. The post hit Hacker News, 30 upvotes in an hour, then 60, then comments. "This looks like what Q-Link just rolled out. Wait, I thought this was proprietary. The author knows way too much about the internals." By morning, someone from inside the company posted a panicked reply defending the system. That only fueled more attention. I watched it all unfold from a coffee shop in Midtown. Same one I used to visit when I still believed the company had a soul. My phone buzzed. A new email from Kevin. Subject, "Seriously, we need to talk. Alex, I know you're not interested in coming back, but things are falling apart. Henry is pretending it's all under control, but the truth is, we don't even know what's breaking anymore. I saw your blog post. Please, I'm asking not as a CTO, but as someone trying to keep this thing alive. Can we talk? One call. That's all I'm asking." I didn't answer, but I didn't delete it either. Instead, I forwarded it to Jordan. He called within minutes. "You gonna do it?" he asked. "Not yet." "You want him to sweat?" "No," I said. "I want them all to look at each other and realize they can't fake it anymore. That without me, this entire myth collapses." There was silence on the line. Then Jordan said, "You're not who you used to be." I laughed once. Good. But he was right. A year ago, I would have said yes immediately. I would have walked back in, offered help, apologized for even being upset. But now I understood something deeper. This wasn't about code. This was about authorship, about being seen, about not letting someone else wear your name like a mask. That night, I opened my private archive. I began organizing everything into a timeline. Day 1 of prototype, first breakthrough on fault tolerance, original logs from latency tests, every commit tagged with date, hash, metadata, email threads with Henry that showed how he dismissed, then stole, my work. I added screenshots, version diffs, even Slack messages. I wasn't just documenting history, I was building a case, and the more I assembled, the clearer the goal became. Not revenge, exposure. They beat me to the punch and made it worse. A week after my silent campaign began, Quantum Link released an emergency patch. No changelog, no public statement. Just a quiet push into production in the middle of the night, like they were cleaning up a crime scene before sunrise. But the bugs didn't go away, they multiplied. Clients began complaining on Reddit and X. Screenshots of failed dashboards, angry DMs from developers. A thread titled, "Is Quantum Link Crumbling?" reached front page in under an hour. I watched all of it unfold with calm precision, until I got the call. Unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. "Alex, it's Henry." I didn't speak, just let the silence harden. "I know you're upset." Still nothing. "Look, we need to move past this. I made mistakes. You made some too. Let's talk." I finally spoke. "You're calling because you're scared." Pause. "I'm calling because this isn't sustainable," he said, "and because investors are asking questions." There it was. Not an apology, a transaction. "I'm not interested in being your tech support," I said. "I'm offering a path forward. We make a joint statement. You come in as a consultant. We spin the narrative." I laughed. It was sharp and ugly. "You think this is about spin?" He shifted. "Be careful, Alex. You don't want to burn bridges you might need." "You already set them on fire," I said. "I'm just watching them fall." I hung up. I didn't move for a while after that. Just sat there, phone in hand, staring into the dark of my apartment. For a second, the old voice crept in, the one that always whispered compromise. "Take the deal, be reasonable, get your name back and move on." But then I saw the photo. It was on my desk, half buried under drafts and printouts. A Polaroid from 3 years ago. Me, Jordan, and a whiteboard covered in impossible equations. We were laughing. I looked exhausted, but alive. That version of me believed in the work, in the team. And they killed that. I needed to see how deep the rot went. The next day, I reached out to someone I never thought I'd contact again, Melissa, the ex-COO who left the company after a mysterious, strategic disagreement with Henry. She picked up on the second ring. "Wow, the ghost returns," she said. "You heard what's happening?" "Everyone has. Q-Link's dying in public." I paused. "I want to meet." We chose neutral ground, a quiet wine bar downtown. She walked in like a storm, sharp coat, sharper eyes. "You're not here to apologize," she said, sitting. "No, I'm here to finish what we started." She looked at me for a long time. "What do you want, Alex?" "I want the truth out. All of it. The theft, the manipulation, the collapse. I have everything documented. And I want the board to see it." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered. "You're not the only one who's been collecting receipts," she said. She slid a USB stick across the table. "Financial misreporting, internal emails, investor pressure. Henry's been burying red flags for over a year." It was more than I'd hoped for. I nodded once. "We go together," I said. "To the board. To the edge." That night, walking home, the city felt colder. Not dangerous, just surgical. I knew I'd crossed a line, not just against them, against who I used to be. The quiet one, the coder, the builder. Now I was something else, and there was no way back. I didn't sleep the night before the board meeting. Instead, I stood over the city, watching it through my window. A silent grid of lights and systems, most of which ran on code I had touched. There was something poetic in that. They wanted me erased, but I was still pulsing through their machines, invisible, essential. Melissa texted at 6:03 a.m. They confirmed, 11E, wear something that says, "Not an employee." I replied. I'll wear what I wore the day they fired me. Black shirt, no logo, clean jeans, neutral. Forgettable, just like they wanted me to be. The building hadn't changed. Same polished marble, same reception desk with fake warmth. But as we rode the elevator up to the 31st floor, I could feel a difference in the air. Pressure, like something about to snap. Melissa glanced over. You ready? I've been ready since they took my name off the commits. She nodded once, that was enough. Inside, the boardroom was painfully quiet. 7 people, 1 long table. Henry already seated, flanked by legal counsel, and Kevin, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. He met my eyes and then immediately looked away. Mr. Green, one of the board members said, gesturing to a seat. I sat, Melissa next to me. You've asked for this meeting under unusual circumstances. We're listening. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin black folder. No theatrics, just facts. Inside is a complete timeline of the Quantum Link core development, version history, authored code, architectural notes. All traceable, all verifiable. Henry shifted. We've already reviewed the technical ownership. It was built by the team, with my framework, I said, and my design, down to the failover logic that's currently causing cascading failures in production. Melissa slid her own folder across the table. And here's the financial report you haven't seen. The one where projected uptime was falsified to meet Q3 investor targets, including Henry's signature. That landed. The board shuffled. One of them opened the file immediately. Another leaned back, eyes narrowing at Henry. Are you alleging fraud? A woman at the end of the table asked. Melissa didn't flinch. We're not alleging anything. We're just showing you what's been buried. Henry stood suddenly. This is a vendetta. Alex is a disgruntled ex-employee, and Melissa was pushed out for a reason. I didn't look at him. I looked at the board. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because your platform is collapsing, and you've been lied to. Kevin finally spoke. Quiet. Careful. It's true. We've been patching over holes we don't understand. Every time I reach out to Henry for clarification, I get silence or spin. Silence fell. For a moment, all I could hear was the hum of the projector and the weight of years pressing down on this table. Then one of the board members, the oldest, spoke. Mr. Stanford, please step outside. Henry's face went pale. You're seriously... Now. He left the room, slow, like something slipping off a cliff. And I knew in that moment he was done. One of the directors turned to me. What would it take for you to return? I let the question sit. Breathe. Not as a consultant, I said. Not as a band-aid. I want control. The system can't survive without its architect, and I won't rebuild it unless it bears my name again. They didn't answer right away, but they didn't reject it either. That afternoon, the press release went out. Founder returns as interim CTO to stabilize Quantum Link. It was sanitized, vague, corporate, but I knew what it meant. The erasure had failed. I didn't walk back into Quantum Link, I reclaimed it. The office smelled like artificial citrus and tension. Every eye that turned toward me tried to measure how angry I was. I gave them nothing. Just a nod, a clipboard, and silence. Kevin trailed behind me, offering status reports like confessions. We've stabilized 2 zones, but EU nodes are still failing during autoscale triggers. Where's the rollback protocol? I asked. Still being drafted. I stopped walking. You pushed to production without a rollback path. He swallowed. Henry said it was urgent. Henry doesn't speak for the system anymore, I said, and walked into the glass-walled command room. Inside, a half-dozen engineers sat huddled in defeat. I scanned the cluster graph. The dips were sharp, ugly, but predictable once you knew where to look. Everyone out, I said. 10 minutes. I need silence. They cleared the room like a retreating tide. I sat, pulled up a terminal, and logged into the last stable instance I had authored. Its heartbeat was still there, buried deep. And when I typed the first command, it felt like touching something I had buried years ago. Not dead. Just waiting. 10 minutes turned into 2 hours. And when I walked back out, Kevin was pacing. You good? He asked. I handed him a USB stick. Push this config to staging. Watch the logs. Don't touch anything else. He blinked. You trust me to... I trust the code, not you. That night, Melissa invited me to the apartment of a VC she knew, someone on the board. Not an official meeting, just drinks, light jazz, and private conversations in corners. I recognized half the room from the early days. People who used to ignore me in strategy sessions, now smiling too hard. Alex Green. The ghost in the machine. Looks like we owe you a few drinks, huh? Heard your architecture runs half our cloud now. I didn't smile. I scanned the room and found Melissa talking to a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, sharp eyes. She waved me over. Alex, this is Elena Torres. She runs compliance for one of our federal partners. I froze. Government? Elena nodded. We've been reviewing the Q-Link deployment in the Department of Energy. There are... concerns. Melissa glanced at me. Henry made some promises, skipped protocols, exposed systems. Elena leaned in. The patch you just pushed, it stopped a cascading failure in our internal monitoring grid. You saved us a blackout. I didn't know what to say. We'd like to talk more, she said, off the record, for now. The scope shifted. It wasn't just my stolen credit or my erased name anymore. The rot had reached beyond corporate greed. They'd sold an unstable system to infrastructure that couldn't afford instability. On the way home, Melissa broke the silence in the car. You see it now? Yeah. This isn't about you and Henry anymore. It's about everyone he lied to. She nodded. We rode in silence until I added, we need everything. Emails, contracts, deployment logs, access lists. If they used my name to secure those deals, I want evidence. Melissa smirked. Already started. The next morning, I called Jordan. We're going to need help, I said. He didn't even ask. Where do I start? That day, we formed a task force inside the company, unofficial but precise. Melissa, Jordan, Kevin under supervision. I gave them code names, access tiers, objectives. We weren't rebuilding a product. We were building a record of truth. And this time, I wasn't the ghost in the system. I was the signal. It all came to a head in a hotel ballroom dressed like a courtroom. Quantum Link's quarterly summit, now repurposed as a staged transparency panel. Investors, clients, media. The company needed to save face, or at least delay the fall. I stood backstage, mic clipped to my collar, watching Henry through the side curtain. Yes, he was here. Of course he was. Still clinging to the edges, the board had removed him from the CEO role, but he'd secured a strategic advisory title in exchange for silence. He wore it like armor. He wasn't on the panel, but he was close enough to feel the fire. Melissa leaned in. You sure you want to do this live? It only works if they see it, I said, all of it. She nodded and stepped away. Then the lights hit. The host, one of the safer board members, took the mic. Today's session is about trust, resilience, and accountability. We're joined by the team who brought Quantum Link back from the brink. Applause, hesitant. Then eyes turned toward me. I stepped forward, no slides, no branding. Just a single interface projected behind me. The original system dashboard I designed 5 years ago, before the edits, before the theft. Most of you don't know my face. That was by design. I was never the pitchman, never the photo op. I was the architect. I let the silence settle. This system was built with intention, with redundancies, safeguards, and traceability. And it was broken by shortcuts, ambition, and one very deliberate lie. I tapped the screen. Behind me, side-by-side code diffs filled the wall, my original commit and the altered version Henry's team had pushed without attribution. Gasps. This logic error didn't just cost uptime, it cost trust. It exposed government systems. It destabilized platforms you depend on. Kevin stepped up beside me, nervous but steady. When I joined, I thought we were building something durable. What I found was a patchwork of stolen work and corporate spin. And we let it happen. The moderator cut in, trying to steer. But surely this isn't about one man. Melissa cut him off. It is, and it isn't. Henry Stanford knowingly presented Alex's work as his own, rewrote commit histories, submitted falsified compliance documents. We have all of it. She turned to the crowd. Ask yourselves, if we hadn't failed publicly, would you ever have seen this? A murmur ran through the audience, phones out, cameras up. We had given them the story, raw and on record. And then Henry stood. He wasn't supposed to, but ego doesn't care for scripts. Let's not turn this into theatre, he said. This is just bitterness dressed up as ethics. Alex walked away. Melissa quit. Kevin was over his head. I did what leaders do. I kept the machine running. He looked right at me. You think your code built this company? It was my vision. I took a breath. Your vision failed the moment you made yourself the product. He opened his mouth to respond, but the room had already turned. Questions fired from the press pit. Investor reps stood, demanding documentation. A voice in the crowd shouted, "Is the DOJ aware of the altered compliance forms?" Security moved toward Henry. He froze. Melissa leaned over her mic. "They are now." The rest happened fast. I stepped off stage. The applause wasn't loud, but it was steady. Not for show, for proof. Jordan caught me by the exit. "They're calling it the reckoning." I nodded once. "Let it burn. What rises from this? We'll build it right." We didn't stay for the drinks. We didn't need to. The truth was public now, and I didn't have to be visible to be undeniable. 3 weeks later, I walked into the old office one last time. It was quiet now. No keyboards clacking, no fake laughter in the kitchen. Just the hum of machines, most of them running stable builds from my team. I walked past my old desk. They hadn't removed the dent in the side panel. I ran my fingers across it like a scar. Melissa was waiting by the elevator. "You sure?" I nodded. "I came back to set the record straight. Not to stay." She handed me an envelope. "Final offer, CTO title, equity, full control." I folded it and placed it on the desk without reading. Let them find someone new, someone clean. In the lobby, Jordan was leaning on the front desk. "Coffee?" "No," I said. "I've got code to write." We stepped out into the rain. No umbrellas. Across the street, the billboard still showed the Quantum Link logo, brighter than before, but hollow now. A shell of something salvaged. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The system works now. My name's in the source.